I have to close down some of my things. Hello there, Autumn. I think you're on mute.
And hi.
There you go.
I'm back. How are you, Dr. O'Brien? Nice to see you.
Thank you. You too. You too. We'll get started in just a moment. But there are some people on live on Zoom, but we connect to a few different mediums, so it'll take.
All right, we're all set to go, gang. We're live.
We're live. We're live. How great! Hello. It's Tuesday. It's 4 o'clock Pacific. I've got to be careful because there's been a time change. 6 o'clock Central, and we now are Central Time here in Costa Rica. Midnight in Dublin and London, 1 a.m. Wednesday morning in Milan and in Warsaw, Poland, 5:30 a.m. in New Delhi, 1 p.m. in Auckland, 10 a.m. Wednesday morning in Brisbane, and it's Facebook Live. Hello, everyone. It's always fun to do that, because there's people all over the world, and it tickles me. So tell us where you're from. Send up a few hearts or thumbs up or thumbs down, whatever you want. But tell us where you're from so we know. And we've got a really special guest today. Autumn has, wow. I mean, how do you start this? I guess I would just say this is a gal who had some health problems, and she figured out what to do on her own because no one was helping her. And then she decided she wanted to help the world, and she started a company that is really well known all through the world now, Paleovalley. So really nice to have you here. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks to Dr. Tom O'Brien. It is such an honor to be here. Your work has been a source of constant inspiration for me from the beginning. And so I wouldn't be running this company if it weren't for you. So thanks for what you've been doing.
Thank you so much. Yes, we're all, thank you. It's really kind of you. So the only thing that I think might be helpful for people is to know a little of your health history and what you went through without too much detail, but give us the 30-second elevator speech, or a minute or 2 minutes, but
Okay, I'm going to get to the point. I had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, for over a decade that no doctor I had seen could treat. And I continued smiling even though I was suffering, and I got put on antidepressants, and my digestive issues snowballed into mental health issues. And I was just really struggling when I met my husband, Chaz, and he decided he didn't want to see me suffer, and he wanted to think outside the box and try a different approach. We tried the paleo diet, and in 30 days, my digestive issues went away. And within the next year, I was a totally different person emotionally and physically. And we were so inspired by that transformation that I quit a job as a celebrity fitness trainer to go back to school to figure out how I could share what just happened to me, because I was always fit, but I wasn't well. I wanted to teach people to be well and also give them the tools to do that. So that's how we got here.
Marvelous. Now, so I've got a couple of questions to start off with, and then people will be shooting questions to us quickly enough. Yeah. But I'm a little confused as a consumer because I hear way too often, red meat is not good for you. And red meat causes cancer. As a matter of fact, I just did an interview this morning with a cancer expert who said that. And I bit my tongue because, I've seen a lot of evidence, and now I'm not just a consumer. Now I'm going back to my role of being a geek that reads the science. Yeah. And I don't see that to be the case unless, and the researchers aren't differentiating between garbage red meat from cows that are raised in pens and injected all the time, and they're eating GMO foods, and they've got an altered microbiome, and their milk is different than cows that are grass-fed cows. And just like humans, that if we're raising animals for more poundage per effort of raising them, so we want them bigger and fatter, it's like farmers put more chemicals on their land to get better crops or more tonnage. And some ranchers do the same with animals. My impression is that it's the quality of the meat that makes a world of difference. And I will never argue with concern about red meats being a problem when they're processed red meats or lunch meats, that have lots of different chemicals in them, for preservatives that alter the microbiome. So I wrestle with this concept, and I've not seen anything that is definitive. Now, but this is your world. This is the world that you're in every day. So please give us some insights from your perspective on this.
What a great question. So
I'm putting her on the spot right away.
You really are. And it's so good. It's so good. Because I don't know if you know, but I'm actually working on a docuseries called Rethink Meat that addresses in 7 videos all of these things. And so
my goodness.
There is a huge, like you said, red meat is a very controversial food. And oh my God.
Time out a minute. Time out a minute. We've got a guest. There's our guest. Say hi.
Hi, buddy.
Hi. Yes. Oh, that's it. He just, look.
You got that teething necklace. I use the same one. That's awesome.
Oh my goodness. Yes. He never takes it off. He doesn't want it off ever.
Hi, buddy. How are you?
And everyone here loves to see Gio. And okay, he's had enough. Thank you.
So
all right.
Cute.
Back to the question.
Okay, so the red meat, right. One of the most controversial foods in the modern day diet, but I've spoken with a number of experts, reviewed the literature myself, Nina Teicholz, Dr. Frederick Leroy, who these people have looked at the totality of the evidence. They've even written to like the dietary advisory boards and said, basically, there have been 20 reviews, showing that saturated fat does not in fact cause heart disease, which is what a lot of people would claim, right? And dietary cholesterol has essentially been vindicated. So those are 2 things that most people are kind of concerned about. When it comes to red meat, we know Dr. David Klurfeld. Do you know who he is?
No, I don't.
Yeah, so he was on the panel when they deemed processed meat a carcinogen and red meat a possible carcinogen. And he said it was one of the most professionally frustrating experiences of his life. There was not a unanimous vote. Of 800 studies they were supposed to review, they actually only used 18. Only of half of them suggested a link. There were human studies that they did not include that ran counter to that. And then if you look at the relative risks, right? So anything below a 2, right? Outside the field of nutrition, you wouldn't really consider meaningful. But these risks they're seeing with red meat in general, in terms of colorectal cancer is around 6%, breast cancer is around 3%. These are really small absolute risk increases when you compare them to like 1,000 times increased risk of cancer you get from smoking or from aflatoxin ingestion is like a 600 times. So no, I don't think red meat is a concern. I think in the context of an unhealthy standard American diet, there might be something happening. I think it's more attributable probably to the processed foods because this is an ancient food. It's hard for me to believe that it's causing modern day disease, but you're right. The quality is also not considered. And we're taking animals, like you said, and eating them fixed total rations, right, of grain and soy. We're giving them antibiotics. We're giving them hormones. We're creating essentially metabolically unhealthy animals. And then we're eating them. And so I do think for me, there is a difference there. And I think I'm actually doing my dissertation right now with Dr. Van Vliet, and was formerly of Duke. Now he's at Utah State, and we're doing he's running the beef nutrient density project, where he's essentially looking at, does the health of the soil and agroecological principles like rotational grazing and, raising animals in a regenerative setting.
Marvelous.
Does that impact the nutrient profile? And I'm telling you, it does. You can tell.
It does.
I mean, the fatty acids change. I'm working specifically on fatty acids, so I can tell higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids, lower levels of omega-6 fatty acids, more CLA, more long chain saturated fatty acids. That's another thing. Saturated fats as a whole are often deemed to be problematic, but there's many different kinds of saturated fats, all that have different effects. And when you feed an animal grass, those that are more neutral on their effects on cholesterol are increased and enhanced. And there are some, like I said, long chain saturated fatty acids that actually have a protective effect, and those levels are also enhanced. And there was a cool kangaroo trial where they looked at wild kangaroo meat versus CAFO meat, right? So it's already not a perfect comparison, right? Because
what's CAFO?
like a confined animal feeding operation, like a cow raised in confinement, fed grains and probably antibiotics and hormones versus a kangaroo meat in the wild. And they showed that levels of inflammation after the meal were far lower in the wild meat. And Van Vliet will be replicating that trial with a beef to beef comparison in the spring. So yes, I believe we don't need to worry about red meat. In fact, it's one of the most nutrient dense foods that we have available, especially in the context of a whole foods diet. I think it's an irreplaceable source of nutrition, a really important one. And I think on top of that, I think the benefits can be enhanced and multiplied when that animal is fed appropriately and leads a really healthy, happy life.
Amen. Amen to all of that. And I'm thrilled that you are actually doing a summit, a 7-part series on this. It'll be, I think the whole world will want to hear this one because there's such confusion out there right now. And my opinion has always been, you've got incisors. The front teeth are designed to tear, for meat. I mean, that's what those teeth are for. In the back, we've got the grinders to grind like grains and vegetables and things. But the front ones, I've always thought, it just didn't make sense that meat is bad for you. It just doesn't make sense.
No.
Now, bad meat is bad for you. And so I'm strong on that. And unfortunately, one of my weaknesses is soppressata salami, because I'm half Italian and I love soppressata. So maybe once every 3 months or so, I'm going to do a little soppressata. I don't do it very often, but when I do, I take some extra digestive enzymes with it to help my body digest it, because I'm not perfect. I'm human, and so the only thing that I cannot cheat on, and I advocate for anyone that's following this path, is wheat. And if you have elevated antibodies to wheat, you can't have any. My son's trying to pull me away. No, honey, I can't.
Oh,
come here. Wait. Come here. Just say hello. Look.
Hi, Gio.
Hey, look. Okay.
Hi, buddy.
He's at that stage now where he comes in the office multiple times a day. Honey, could you find me Facebook on here? He comes in multiple times a day and just grabs my hand and just leads me out. And it's great. It's great. And we go sit down and we do something like we do scorpion checks and we look for things. But, so in any event.
What it's interesting too about Dr. Van Vliet's research that might kind of relate to what you're saying when you have processed meats, but when you feed an animal grass, the levels of phytonutrients actually are enhanced too, which can potentially be protective. So they know eating, antioxidants and vegetables with meat can maybe reduce the risk if you believe there is a risk. But yeah, these phytonutrients seem to be powerful mediators of inflammation.
One of the things that also you said earlier, Autumn, was about CLA. And people really don't know. Most people don't know what CLA is. It stands for conjugated linoleic acid.
Yeah.
And I remember the studies that came out way back in the 80s that you take 1 capsule a day of CLA every day and you lose about 1 pound a month. And in a year, it's somewhere between 10 and 12 pounds, 10 to 14 pounds in a year. And this happens consistently for people because it's a good fat that helps your body digest fats better. And you break down some of the fat in your system. And am I correct that grass-fed beef is high in CLA compared to other, what was that term you used for?
Conventional, CAFO.
Conventional beef. Yeah.
Yes. In the research I'm looking at, CLA is one of the consistent elevations you see when a cow is fed grass, when you compare it to a confined animal feeding operation. In the totality of the research, I think it's something like 2 to 3 times higher consistently. And yeah, you're right. There's documented anti-diabetic and anti-carcinogenic and maybe heart disease protective effects. And they're even saying now, I saw a piece of research that the supplemental form is different than the form that you would get in dairy and in beef or, other animal products. And so it's really, really important. It's an important nutrient that not enough people know about that is definitely enhanced when an animal eats grass.
I think it's always the case that supplements are going to miss something compared to getting it the way it's found in nature. I think that's always the case. Vitamin D supplements are great, but it's always of value to get some vitamin D from sun exposure, minimal amounts of sun exposure, maybe 15 minutes a day, somewhere around high noon, not enough to get pink. You don't want pink skin at all, but just a little bit every day on your arms and legs. And because every decade or so, historically, scientists have found new components to foods that they didn't know were there before. I remember when we used to think that the brain, all of this tissue in the brain was just filler space. And that's what we were taught back in the 1980s. I started my education, my medical education in 1977, and the textbook said that the glial cells were filler space, just to fill up the area. Well, they're the most powerful component of the immune system. These guys, when they get activated inside your brain, if you get a leaky brain, if you get a leaky gut, you're very vulnerable to getting a leaky brain. And if you get a leaky brain and something gets into the brain from the bloodstream that's safe in the bloodstream, but it's not supposed to get into the brain, the glial cells get activated immediately. And these guys fire bazookas. They don't have pistols or high-powered rifles like antibodies. They've got bazookas. So just destroy anything that tries to get in there, which is great, protects us all the time, right? But every decade or so, we learn something new. Last decade, we learned that there's a lymphatic system in the brain that drains toxins out of the brain. It's called the glymphatic system. And so we're always learning new things, and I'm quite sure we're going to discover that the vitamin D that's produced in our skin is very different than the components of vitamin D that have been identified and are made in supplements. So for now, my wife and I take 50,000 units of vitamin D once a week. We don't take it every day. We shotgun it once a week in there. And we will until we learn a little more. But everyone should check their vitamin D levels twice a year. At the beginning of spring, so you can see how bad it got during the winter. And then next year, you'll supplement a little more in the winter, because you'll remember that previously, oh man, my vitamin D was really not very good at all, right? So that's how you learn these types of things. We got a couple of questions to start with. What do you say to the plant-based doctors who have so many studies saying meat is bad for you? What about cholesterol? I have IBS, and a year on a plant-based diet isn't working for me. My cholesterol goes up when I eat meat and dietary fat. I only eat organic food, and when I rarely eat animal products, they are of the finest quality. I've watched Dr. Chris Palmer's videos about the keto diet. I'm considering switching to paleo. I'm 60 and healthy. This is Jill on Facebook. Okay,
there's a lot in there. So
there it is.
I think one of the big problems with most research when you look at red meat is a lot of it's epidemiological, right? And so you're looking at things that are not cause and effect necessarily, right? And the benefits of a plant-based diet are often in people who also have a number of other healthy benefit or healthy lifestyle factors, right? They often smoke less, they have more more means, they have higher socioeconomic status, they're probably exercising more. And so when you look at healthy populations, for instance, like Seventh-day Adventists, which is often a vegetarian group, and you compare them to Mormons, who also live a very healthy lifestyle comparatively, you don't see much difference, right? And they've actually done this really cool Whole Foods shopper study where they tried to control for what's called the healthy user bias, which often makes this type of research hard to interpret accurately. And they found for people who shopped at health food stores, when there wasn't a difference in terms of longevity between those who ate plants and those who ate meat and plants. Okay. So I think most of the research can be attributed to epidemiology, and you'll see, though it's not often talked about, there are at least 20 major like reviews and studies that show that red meat does not in fact cause disease, right? And that saturated fat is not necessarily causing these diseases, but they're not often given the same amount of airtime because they run counter to the narrative. But I will give you some, if you go check out the Nutrition Coalition, 2 resources to look at. They've put together a beautiful outline of the current research. And then Dr. Frederick Leroy also has a dynamic white paper going, and I can share the link to that, where he updates literally daily all of the new research coming out about the relationship between meat and health so that you can stay abreast. And he's very good at adding. So if there does in fact become research that is convincing on the other side, you would learn about that. But so far, the research is not compelling in terms of plant-based narrative. And you have to remember, just like Dr. O'Brien was saying, that's essentially an experiment, right? According to world-renowned archaeologists, the reason that we evolved and had these gigantic leaps is because not only meat, but we became, we had tools, and then we had access to the blood, the fat, the organs. And that's when we made these gigantic leaps. And so taking animal products away, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that an ancient food is causing a modern day problem.
Yeah, agreed.
And dietary cholesterol isn't really a nutrient of concern for most people. There are hyper-responders, and you might be one of them. But for most people, even the 2015 guidelines for the dietary guidelines removed their restriction on dietary cholesterol because they couldn't find a convincing relationship between the amount you eat in your diet and the amount you find in your blood.
And people may not quite be able to digest that last comment. That's like, what? You mean if I'm eating cholesterol, it's not going to affect my blood cholesterol? Your cholesterol levels are cholesterol's made in the liver. And cholesterol is the raw material that estrogen comes from, and testosterone, and insulin, and melatonin, and serotonin. And thyroid hormone, they all come from cholesterol. Cholesterol is a good guy. It's not a bad guy. We've been brainwashed into believing it's a bad guy. I don't buy it. I never have bought it. Now, when you have too much of the wrong type of cholesterol, that's a bad guy. When you've got the oxidated types of LDL cholesterol, and that's the real bad, so it's a lot more complicated than just don't eat cholesterol, don't eat butter. I mean, that's utter nonsense. I put 2 egg yolks and ghee in my wife's coffee every morning. Awesome. And I have for a couple of years now, during her pregnancy and after the birth of Gio, her milk came in full and rich. We were able to, and she had extra, so I was, she would have this type of device called a haka, and it's like a little silicone thing, and it's got a wide opening. You squeeze it and put it on the breast and let it go, and a little suction holds it on there. And while the baby's breastfeeding on one breast, the other breast is being milked a little bit. And then she would give me the haka, and I'd put it in these silicone Ziploc bags, these nice, safe silicone bags, and freeze it. So we always had backup in case Marzi would have had any problems. She didn't, which we're very grateful for. But I had like 90 bags of milk. So we were able to share the milk with other families that were not able to breastfeed for one reason or another. And we're very grateful that we could do that. My point is, Marzi was having 2 egg yolks in her coffee, a big scoop of ghee, some MCT oil, lots of fats in her coffee every single day. And I don't believe in this concept that you can't eat good fat. That's nonsense. I have a question that came up.
Yeah.
In my experience, there was a book that came out a number of years ago, The Blood Type Diet. And they talk about different blood types and that their bodies tend to thrive with different combinations and selections of food. Blood type O being, and people ask me about the blood type diet, they have for many years, and I've always said the same thing. In my clinical experience, You can try it. It might help, depending on what your blood type is. You can try it. There's no danger in, as far as I know.
Yeah.
But the one blood type that consistently excels is blood type O. When you follow the guidance of the blood type diet principles, which is you need more quality protein, very little carbohydrates and lots of protein. So you're in this world of lots of protein. Have you seen any evidence that for blood type O's having higher amounts of protein, any dangers or cautions that you've seen?
Gosh, that's a really good question. And I know that framework, but I haven't really worked with it that often. I kind of use other metrics or parameters to help people figure out what their best intake of meat is. But I've listened to, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and other experts and, Donald Layman. And for the most part, I haven't ever heard them put people into buckets that way, but that doesn't mean the research doesn't exist. I'm just not familiar.
Yeah. Okay, good enough. Well, my clinical experience for many years has been, I always tell blood type O's, why don't you just try this for a little while? Cut down your carbohydrates very, very low, because you've been eating way too many, and that's why you've got a spare tire around your midsection, right? Let's see what happens with a couple of months of this. And consistently, they rave about how great they feel. Their energy goes up, their belt's going a notch to 2 notches tighter, a number of benefits like that.
Well, it's kind of like the fast oxidizer, slow oxidizer kind of thing. I could say my husband thrives with far more animal products than I do. I'm in this meat world, but I wouldn't say I eat a meat heavy diet necessarily. So
Gotcha. What is a good amount of beef to consume each week?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that varies, right? I think, like you're saying, what is your blood type? Does that matter? What is your level of athleticism? Are you an athlete? Are you in a stage of growth? Are you pregnant, right? Are you a man? Are you a woman? I think it just, right now, Americans consume about 2 ounces of beef per day, which is actually within the level recommended by the dietary guidelines. And so I don't really think that we're consuming much to begin with. I do probably right there in that 2 ounces a day area. So 14 ounces a week, something like that, 3 to 5 servings. But again, if you're someone who stores iron more readily, you can probably talk about that. Some people on that side of the spectrum might want to consume less. And some people just don't want to eat quite as much red meat for many reasons. And so you might eat less, and you might eat other kinds of animal products too. Like, I'm not married to the idea that everybody needs to eat red meat all the time, but I'm also not convinced that it's dangerous when in the context of a healthy diet and, raised responsibly and consumed within that, 2 to 2 ounces a day. I think that's absolutely what most people are doing today is
Got
is
it. Got it. Yeah. We worked with a woman named Emily Ridebaum of growbabyhealth.com. Remarkable website for pregnant women, just remarkable. Emily's parents are very good friends of mine. Dr. Michael Stone is one of the founding faculty of the Institute for Functional Medicine, and he's the Marcus Welby for us all. And I'm dating myself. Most people don't know what I mean, but you'll have to watch the show. You'll have to look it up and see. But both Michael and his wife are obstetricians, gynecologists, OB-GYNs, and they've delivered over 5,000 babies in their life between the two of them.
Wow.
And so Emily grew up at the dinner table every night almost. Mom or dad had to go to another birth. And, they come home and they talk about it. So her whole life has been around pregnancies and deliveries and the problems that could develop. They developed this great website, this wonderful guidance for pregnant women, growbabyhealth.com. And when I called Emily and said, "Hey, we're pregnant," she said, "Oh, congratulations, you guys." And I said, "So can you work with Marzi?" And she said, Of course. And Marzi loved talking to her, but the first thing that Emily said, you need 1 gram of protein per pound body weight. So it was 100 grams of protein for Marzi. Marzi weighed about 104, something like that. And that was a lot of protein. That's where the egg yolks in the coffee originated for us, was to get the protein in there. And so the idea of more protein, because this baby's growing, you need a lot of building block material for this little being to grow. In your experience, what levels of protein? You say 2 ounces a day, but in terms of
red meat.
grams
Yeah.
of red meats.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you were talking about red meat. But yes, like you're saying, I always aim for 100 grams of protein a day or 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight a day. The RDAs are really low, right? They represent a minimum rather than a target. And if you look in the research, simply increasing the percentage of protein in your diet helps you to feel satiated. You eat less, you burn more calories, even while you're sleeping. I mean, you burn fat, you have better body composition, you build more muscle. I mean, every health parameter that a lot of Americans are looking for happens when you simply eat more protein. And yeah, it can be a challenge. And that's part of the reason that we created our company. And it can be hard. And that's where the egg yolks, like you said, come into play, and snacking, making your snacks protein centric. But it's pretty remarkable how your appetite shifts and how your energy shifts and how you like get rid of those dips in your blood sugar all day long when you're
It is remarkable.
Protein. It is.
It is remarkable.
Amazing.
All right, let's do a couple of shout outs. First, Christina is here from Cartago, Costa Rica. Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for being here. Anna says she's in the capital of USA. Jane's here from England. Harwinia is here from Port Moody, British Columbia. And I'll scroll down through my phone. Brandy says, I love Paleo Valley. Their beef sticks are the best of the best. Maria has a question. Is it possible to heal Candida forever? Do you have advice? Thank you so much. It's not possible to heal anything forever. That if you've developed a particular disease or a particular condition, it means lifestyle has led you down this road. And, if you pull at a chain, it always breaks at the weakest link. It can be the one end, the middle, the other end, your heart, your brain, your reproductive system. Wherever your weak link is, that's where the chain's going to break. And the pull on the chain is inflammation that comes from your lifestyle. So you can't take something, whatever it is, and maybe you're going to feel better, but if you keep living the lifestyle that caused the problem, it's going to come back. And so you have to understand to put something into remission, which is not difficult to do. I don't care if it's an autoimmune disease or if it's chronic yeast infections. To put something into remission is certainly possible, and that's the goal, so that you feel better. But if you go back to the old way of living, it's coming right back again.
Yeah.
That's what you have to understand. So yes, it is possible to put something into remission, but it's not possible to have it go away forever, and then you can go back to the lifestyle that caused the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
Autumn, is there anything you want to add to that concept?
Gosh, no, I think you laid that out beautifully. I absolutely agree.
Thanks. Yeah. Amal says, enjoying the Paleo Valley grass-fed organic, and my phone stopped there with wherever you were going, Amal. Thank you so much for the shout out though. Yeah. Jane's here from Ohio, where it's 7 p.m. and totally dark already. I hear you, Jane. Deb says, beef is the best food you can consume. Jill says, what do you say to the plant? Okay, Jill, we did that question already. Lucia Lagarde is here, said hello, Jill. Colin's here from Scotland, I believe. Is that right, Colin? You're in Scotland? He's here every week, love him. He said, I suppose people are enjoying their McDonald's burgers or Kentucky Fried Chicken, and here in England, traditional fish and chips. Cars are queuing around the block, waiting nearly an hour to pick up their order at McDonald's. Well, that's, I hear you. I don't have much to say about that. Listen, my senior year of high school, I had a Big Mac most every day.
Oh, wow.
And my brain is still functioning so many years later. It took a lot of work to clean it up, but it's still functioning now. But it's unfortunate that the world, there's so much of that that processed fast food meats that people are eating. That's just terribly unfortunate.
Yeah.
Suzanne's here from Ohio. Love you, Dr. Tom. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. Aisha's here. Carolyn Morelli is here. And it goes on and on with the names, but you people aren't telling me where you're from. You got to tell me where you're from. That's what's really tickling. I'm glad you're here. Oh, Quincy Benson's here. Hey, Quincy. The Benson family is in Iowa. And Autumn, Quincy is, I think, 10 years old now. And every week, and they sent me a picture every week she's sitting there looking at the laptop for Facebook Live every Tuesday evening. So I think this gal is going to be quite a healer in her own light, whatever she chooses to do in her life. She's going to be someone that understands the teeter-totter of how to be healthy and how much can you push the boundaries, and then, oh, I better not go any further than that. Got to get back on track here. We're all that way, aren't we? At times, you know, that's how we all learn.
Yeah.
So tell us a little about Paleo Valley. I mean, I know a little bit, but our audience may not. So let me give them a little background and a little status report on Paleo Valley. Who are you guys?
Yeah. So we're basically the company that prioritizes quality and health over profit and pretty much everything else. And we created these products because I reclaimed my health. And then I'm not someone who loves to linger in the kitchen. I do cook, but I also have a really busy life. And so I wanted staples, things I could take on the road, high quality food that I could feed my family. And so we created all of our products with that in mind. Like, what would we want our friends to eat? What would we want our own family to eat? And so, you know, grass-fed and finished sourcing from American regenerative farms, which is really important today because most of the higher quality animal products are coming from other countries. And we have this increased need for incentivizing farmers who want to use regenerative practices and heal our land and heal our soil. And so we always source from American regenerative farms. When it comes to, you know, other ingredients, they're organic. You know, we do third-party testing. We're working towards whole animal utilization. We're always prioritizing synergy. If you notice our supplements, they're whole food because we have that reverence for that food synergy and all the nutrients in a whole food that we don't yet know, but are very beneficial. And so we have beef sticks. That was our flagship product, right? And we ferment them so that we can avoid the use of other additives like encapsulated citric acid, which is the industry standard, made from GMO corn and then coated in hydrogenated oil, melts into the product, preserves the stick. And I didn't want to eat that or feed that to my family. So we used fermentation, which people have been using for centuries and creates a very gut healthy product. Yes. And then we also have superfood bars. My problem with most of the bars on the market is they're just kind of carbohydrate bars and they might not have gluten or whatever else, but they also don't have a lot to offer. And so we put high quality collagen protein from grass-fed and finished animals, as well as superfoods, acerola cherry, you know, blueberry, kale is even in there and you can't taste it. So, and then we have a growing line of supplements. We have Fish Row, which is a revered kind of omega-3, DHA, EPA, fatty acid supplement that also has things like selenium and other minerals and protein because it's a whole food source. We have organ meats, which are literally nature's multivitamins. If you don't want to eat them, we can just put them in capsules for you from really high quality source. We have mushrooms. Most mushrooms are grown on grain. They're really beneficial for the immune system, for the brain, for many aspects of health. But a lot of times 50% of the product or more could just be the grain that they're grown on. So we decided to create a very concentrated and high quality source of those. We have most vitamin C is made from genetically modified corn. And instead we have 3 superfoods, the highest sources of vitamin C in food-based form. So essentially our company just comes in, creates the products that we think the modern diet leaves out, the ancestral foods, the really high quality sourcing that we want to make very convenient for people in their lives.
That's marvelous. That's a great elevator speech. You've got that down really well. But I'm sure everyone's sitting here going, wow, yeah, wow, oh, wow. Because, and let me tell you that what she's saying is accurate and true. I've been following Paleo Valley since they began, and it's just marvelous. When I can get my hands on some of their products, I love it. Here in Costa Rica, it's much more difficult. right? And so it's not as easy for me, but I placed an order earlier this year because I was going to see my daughter and grandchildren in Chicago, and they love it. They just loved it. And I would assume they're still ordering now on their own. I recommend everyone to give it a try. You'll go to their website, or Ann will post the link here for you for them, and so that you can go try their products and just notice for yourself. Shay has a question: can diet boost a man's testosterone? Well, Shay, the short answer is yes, no. Yeah, of course, it'll help, especially if you're eating tissue, glandular tissue or organ meats. That helps a great deal. But it's lifestyle that creates low testosterone. It's chemicals you're exposed to and insulin resistance. And so if you're packing a spare tire around your midsection, there's more than just, well, what can I eat to increase testosterone? There's no question that diet is a contributor to either raising your hormones across the board to, now, where should your level be? I think that for most of us, we're living a higher stress life. And there's more demands on us. We want more from ourselves, and people want more from us. So if the range, I'm going to make up a number here, if the normal range is between 100 and 800, you could be at 142 and your doctor says you're normal because you're within the reference range. But I want you to be robust at 700, 650, 700, maybe even up to 800 in the normal range, but at the higher end of normal. That's the target goal. So the short answer to your question is yes, it probably will help, and no, it won't if your lifestyle is suppressing your testosterone levels. Peggy Lee says, hi from West B, and I don't know what B is. My phone doesn't tell me, but hi, Peggy. Thank you so much. Quincy says, I've been taking the organ complex for 3 months and feel a difference in my energy and drive. Love Paleovalley. All right, Quincy.
Yay, Quincy. That's the most common side effect we see is a reduction in fatigue and an improvement in endurance. So awesome. So happy.
What is it about organ meats from your perspective that makes them so good?
Yeah, this is a fascinating question. So B12 is a very important nutrient and it contains a lot of B12. So that's one thing, and other B vitamins. But there is something, an anti-fatigue factor that was demonstrated in this animal trial where they had these drums of water and they put the rats in, they fed them a normal diet plus B vitamins, or a normal diet plus liver. And so the people on the normal diet and the vitamin B diet, they swam, or the mice rather, 16 minutes, 15 minutes. And then at the end of the trial, around, an hour, the rats fed liver were still going. And so they don't know exactly what it is, but there is an unidentified anti-fatigue factor. I think it's because our modern diets are, deficient in nutrients. And most of us just benefit greatly from having a huge influx of B vitamins and vitamin A, minerals like iron. Also, vitamin A, copper, and iron kind of work together to improve energy levels and prevent anemia, right? And so liver has all of that. So if you have any sort of iron issues, that will be very helpful. So I think it's just the synergy. It seems like there's a lot of nutrients working together to produce that effect.
And in your organ meat products, the capsules that she's referring to, you're using grass-fed animals?
Yes. Yes, grass-fed and finished animals. It just looks like this, and it's heart, liver, and kidney. And so just the combination of as many different organ meats. We used to do brain, but that kind of made people nervous, and so we removed the brain. But these are very high quality, well-fed animals on very healthy lands.
My favorite meat in the entire world is elk heart. Ooh. Ground together 50-50 with elk meat. And so I don't have access to it very often at all. And so I look for organic farmers and ranchers. I found one here in Costa Rica. And I asked him, I said, when you harvest your next animal, can I buy the heart? He said, yes, of course. Usually we give it to the dogs, but yeah, we'll give it to you, sure. And I said, okay, so I'd like you to weigh it. And if it weighs, let's say 15 pounds, then I want 15 pounds of regular meat from the same animal, grind it all together in 1 pound packages, and I'm going to freeze it. And that is our hamburger meat, our meatloaf meat, our taco meat is this 50-50 mix of heart and ground meat from the same animal. And it's delicious. Gio can't get enough of it. He loves it, when we have it. And it doesn't taste like liver. I personally am not great with the taste of liver. I'll do it once in a while and I'll, enjoy it to some degree, but it's not on the top of my list. But this one, heart ground meat mix, delicious, just delicious.
I love that you love that. I made him into capsules because I couldn't tolerate the taste. But are you familiar with Dr. Ty Beal's research that just came out?
No.
He did this micronutrient, it's called priority micronutrient density rating system. And he looked at the nutrients that most people are deficient in worldwide: folate, vitamin A, calcium, zinc, iron, and then found the foods that would fill those gaps. And of the top 10 foods, it's heart, liver, kidney, spleen, it's organ meats, right? So if you're not consuming them, they're very important foods. And like you said, if you can stomach it ground in, we also have a meat company called Wild Pastures, and we source from regenerative animals, and we have a primal blend situation coming, so you can get
nice. Oh, nice, very nice. I've read great reviews of organ complex during pregnancy and postpartum. I always had to supplement my babies with formula alongside my breast milk because my body didn't produce enough, even when working with a lactation consultant. I wonder if organ complex would have helped.
Oh, perhaps. I mean,
have you had any experience with pregnant moms or breastfeeding moms to talk about this?
Right. Yeah, I have worked with pregnant mom, not necessarily, it's hard to say that this supplement alone was responsible for a healthy supply because there's a lot of things that people are doing. But I do find, that women who use it, typically, I haven't really worked with a lot of women who have had problems and actually couldn't have a healthy supply. So I can't say it's necessarily because of it, but I have seen a lot of success using it with pregnant women. And even that concern in the very beginning of pregnancy, in the first 8 weeks, that research, and I would love to hear your opinion on it, but from my understanding is that was a synthetic form of vitamin A, and that when you get it in food form and you're mindful of the amount of liver, 2 servings per week or so, it's safe and can be very beneficial.
I have had that same opinion for a long time. Okay. Colin Dunwell, who I believe it's Scotland where he is, says, if you don't eat red meat at all and only eat salmon and chicken with several vegetables, is this a bad thing?
Ooh, it would just depend on your health status, right? You might be missing iron and zinc. There are some nutrients, carnitine, carnosine, anserine. There's some really unique nutrients in red meat specifically. And that just depends on your body's need for them and your, what your levels are of those nutrients. So it might be, I don't know. What do you think, Dr. O'Brien?
I would run some tests, Colin, to see. First, I'd look at your health history. And what's your health history? Any suggestions of deficiencies? Then I would run a nutrient panel one time to see what's your B12 level, your iron levels. The storage level of iron is called ferritin. What's your ferritin level? That's almost more important than your iron level. How much of a reserve tank do you have? Not more important, but as important as your iron level. So I'd want to take a look. In general, my opinion is in choosing meats to eat is that rotate, have the highest quality you possibly can. I'd say that we probably have beef once to twice a week. We're not daily by any means, and I think it's about once to twice a week. Like today, the pasta was buckwheat pasta for lunch with a chicken-based tomato sauce. And Marzi said, because we're out of our mix. And I've placed the order and we'll get another 25 pounds this weekend of the ground beef heart mixture. But she did it with chicken and it was tasty. But we'll do beef probably twice a week is my guess. And we're not fanatical about it in any way whatsoever. Barbara Irk, happy to be back again from Washington Township, Michigan. Is costochondritis affected by cholesterol? Oh, that's an interesting question. Costochondritis, it's an itis, it's an inflammation of the cartilage, usually around the ribs, usually in this area. And I've never seen a correlation with cholesterol. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but I'm just not familiar with that one at all. Janice is here from North Carolina. Jillian's in Cleveland. Emily says, what are some ways to break the quality protein down even better besides enzymes? Well, that's an interesting question.
Oh,
Autumn?
Yeah, what I would do is make sure you're eating in a relaxed state, make sure you're chewing enough. And then we also have an apple cider vinegar complex that we've put into capsules. But apple cider vinegar, ginger, really simple things that you can use to kind of increase the pH of your stomach before you eat would also be helpful because they kind of help those proteins to unwind and be digested and broken down more efficiently. So those are the three things I would do. What about you, Dr. O'Brien?
Well, you also ferment some of your beef products, which would help break them down, make them easier to digest. And I was really happy when you referenced that because I had forgotten that you guys do that. That's what makes your beef sticks so unique one of the things that makes them so unique out there in the world. Yeah. Let's see. Is it true that grass-fed meat needs less time to be cooked?
Yeah, it can sometimes. Yeah, it just depends. And you'll see it's kind of interesting. Grass-fed beef is not grass-fed beef, right? It just depends on where it's raised, what the conditions are. It can be a little bit more tender when there's a more humid environment and a little drier and requiring maybe a little bit more time. In general, I'd say, yeah, I mean, a little less time is necessary, but that isn't always the case.
Amal asks the question on Facebook, can you find a substitute for the tapioca in your products? Many of my clients are reactive to tapioca. Thank you. Love your products and your passion.
Oh, you know what? Thanks for putting that on my radar. We could definitely try. So far, that is the best source of dextrose that we can find because a lot of times it's corn or something else genetically modified. And so we've chosen that tapioca for that reason, but we can absolutely look into it. Happy to do so.
Unfortunately, when doctors do test for sensitivity to tapioca, and many of them don't, but so the numbers are not accurate representations of what's going on out there in society. But when I checked into this was a few years ago, it was somewhere between 22 to 24% of the people that were tested for tapioca sensitivity came back positive. So a lot of people, really a lot of people. And I think it has to do with the type of processing of the tapioca that's being used in our food products, our processed foods. That is where that comes from. My suspicion, but I don't really know for sure.
Very well could be.
Let's see. Hi, Dr. Tom Cullen again from England. It's not the occasional burgers, but some people go to McDonald's every day, and that is their main family meal. 5 years ago at 68, I was 19 stone, 10 pounds. And today at 73, I'm just under 12 stone. But I did this through healthy eating rather than dieting. I am wheat, gluten, dairy, and sugar-free for the last 2 years. Well, congratulations. Glad to hear it. So we've got a 73-year-old guy out there, ladies, who's pretty pretty buff right now. So.
I love that.
Teresa asked the question, is bison healthy?
Oh, yeah, I would say we don't actually offer bison. It's not something I've looked into, but Dr. Van Vliet has done a lot of research around the differences when bison are raised in more regenerative settings. And there's a lot of phytonutrients and a lot of protein, very high quality protein. So I would say, and it's, typically healthier, than most conventionally raised cows, I would say. So yeah, I would think so. What do you think, Dr. O'Brien?
Yeah, that's very true. Back in the 1980s and into the mid 1990s, I had found a bison ranch in South Dakota, and this couple, they'd been there for 40 years, and they had just the best meats, and I would order like 20 fillets and ground meats and things, and we lived on bison as opposed to beef most of the time. And then they retired and they sold their ranch to a corporation, and the price of the meat tripled in 1 month, tripled. So unfortunately, I stopped ordering there, but I loved the taste. And I'm remembering that I ordered some buffalo testicles one time. And those things are like this.
Oh no.
And I had a men's group meeting at my house with my friends, and I sliced them up and barbecued them, and I didn't tell them. I said, yeah, we got some beef here. And so in terms of testosterone, I forgot all about that. In terms of testosterone, yeah, you can do buffalo balls. Excuse me.
I'm never eating at your house ever. Just kidding. I'm from Montana. There's actually a testicle festival every year.
I've been to it twice. I've been there.
Yeah. Good time.
I used to have a place in the Bitterroot.
Oh, you did?
I
Amazing.
did.
I love Montana.
Yeah, me too. Very much. My God, it's the end of the hour. Wow, it goes so fast.
It does. It does.
Yeah. Are there any points that you wanted to make sure to bring up while you're here today?
No, Dr. O'Brien, you've done a wonderful job of kind of outlining what we're doing, and we're just grateful to have been here. So thanks. And it's been so fun interacting with all of you too. So no, this has been wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and Anne has posted the link. I can see it here to the paleo site. Everyone go there, give it a shot. Go ahead.
I do have one thing I forgot. We just opened our first burger restaurant based on regenerative agriculture. There is no sugar in the whole place, even no soda. There's milkshakes that are, don't involve sugar, and all homemade sauces. So that's in Boulder, and it's called Wild Pastures Burger Company. So if you're in the Denver, Boulder area, I'd love to see you there.
Oh, how marvelous. I'll make sure next time I go to Denver and up to Boulder, I'll absolutely be there. It sounds marvelous. Anyone in that area? Check it out, Wild Pastures.
Yeah.
Autumn, thanks so much, and Godspeed to you and your company, and thank you for doing such great work. You guys are modeling quality food on a commercial basis.
Yeah.
And that's so difficult to do, but you've really mastered that. And all of my friends talk about you guys, Paleo Valley, and how wonderful your products are. So thank you so much. And for everyone out there, thank you for being here today. See you next